So what is this b squared minus 4ac thing? Starts with a D, remember? Discriminant. So I want everybody to tell me, what happens if d is greater than 0? Well, I'll remind you, this is in the middle of this formula. X equals negative b plus or minus square root all over 2a. So that black part there, this part here, if that's bigger than 0, you get how many answers? Yep. You get 2 answers. What if the discriminant is less than 0? You have the square root of a negative. What does that mean? How many real answers are there? No real answers. There's answers, they're just imaginary, but 0 real answers. And what if the discriminant is 0? And you get 1 answer. All right, so we're going to do a couple problems like that. Here you go. Ready? X squared plus 6x plus 1. What's the discriminant? And that's just a number. And then tell me how many solutions it's telling you that this will have. Don't they always have 2 answers? No. Sometimes they have no real answers if the discriminant comes out negative. Sometimes they have 2 answers, and sometimes they have 1 answer. All right, biggest mistakes here. Number 1, people are like, what is the discriminant? Well, that's pretty dumb. But if they at least know it's b squared minus 4ac, the next mistake people make is that they think that you're supposed to square root it. No, don't square root it. Do not square root the answer. The discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. So then, the last thing that people make a mistake on is they think, well, you just wanted me to tell you how many answers there are. No. I need you to tell me what the discriminant is. Is it 72? Is it negative 100? What is the discriminant? And then separately, you got to tell me, so how many answers does this have? That's 2 separate questions. One is, what's the discriminant? The second question is, how many answers is it telling you that the blue equation will have? All right, so everybody figure out b squared minus 4ac. I already wrote the empty bones of the equation. You should do that too. And then you drop in b and a and c and multiply it all out. And you will have a calculator, so it'd be okay with me if you used your iPad's calculator to just get this number, because calculators will be allowed on this test. Get it all multiplied out and compare the discriminant with the kid next to you. All right, so b was 6, so you should have said 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1. That's 36 minus 4. That's 32. Oops, got a little dyslexic for a second there. 32, raise your hand if you had 32. Awesome, what is that thing called? Discriminant. And now what is it telling you? There's 2 solutions. How do you know there's 2 solutions from a 32? Because it's positive. What if the answer had come out negative? Then what? There would be no real solutions because you're doing square roots of negatives and they don't exist. Unless you use imaginary numbers. All right, one more. Are you ready? This is also going to be pretty easy, but it's going to come out different. Y equals negative x squared, careful with that negative in front, plus 6x minus 10. What is the discriminant here? And then figure out what that's telling you. What's wrong? Shut it all the way down, bring it all the way back up. So the discriminant, it's b squared minus 4ac. Empty spot squared minus 4 empty spot, empty spot. That's how I do it. Lucas, what do I put in for my numbers? What squared? Oh, he's not here, sorry. I was even assuming he was sitting over there. He's not here today. Sorry about that. Let's go with, go for it, Salt Life.
6 squared.
6 squared minus 4 times,
-1.
yes, -1. It would have been really easy to by accident say 1. And last but not least,
-10.
do you get that there are 3 negatives in this? That makes that come out to -40. So it's 36 minus 40. I bet some people screwed up that negative right there. It's -4. Mateo, what does that tell you?
There's no real solution.
There are no real solutions because that came out negative. But what is the discriminant? That is the discriminant. Most common mistake answer, kids think, aren't we supposed to square root that? No, that's if you're doing the whole quadratic formula. Any questions? Okay, you do a discriminant and it comes out to 17. How many answers are there going to be? 2. What about if it was -17? No real solutions. How about if it comes out to 0? 1 solution. Okay, good. I think we got those. Now, everybody from memory, write out the whole quadratic formula. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. And when you learn it with that little song, it's not too hard. You have it memorized yet? All right, I'm going to give you some scratch paper and a pencil. I need you to just doing math. I know it's not your fault. I just don't want you to get so far behind that you haven't learned anything. All right. Did you say x equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a? And why did I make that b squared minus 4ac different than all the rest of it? Because it's the what? Discriminant. Okay. Wouldn't it be smart if you were going to do the whole quadratic formula to start with a discriminant? It's the hardest part. I've told you before, this right here is where more mistakes are made than any other part. So be doing that really carefully. All right, so everybody use that to find the 2 solutions. And your answer will look something like this. 2 plus and minus the square root of 6 all over 10. Okay, so it'll simplify down like that. That's not the right answer, but something like that. X squared plus 3x minus 4. I'd like you to get the 2 answers for that. How are you supposed to do that? Well, A, B, and C are sitting right here. Go ahead, plug them in. Check with the kid next to you. I'm going to pause for a second. I'll give you some time. Down. What did you get after that first simplification?
Square root of 25.
Did you only do the underneath the root? I mean, wasn't there something in front of it too?
Oh yeah, -3.
Okay, so -3. Why is it -3? Isn't it positive? Isn't B positive 3?
No. X equals -3.
Yeah, you got to do the opposite of it. So you're right, -3 plus and minus, and what's square root of 25? It's actually 5, all over 2a, which is 2. So then it's -3 plus and minus 5 over 2. And can you leave it that way? No. You have to actually finish it. -3 plus 5 over 2 and -3 minus 5 over 2. You need to go all the way on these and get all the way down to the simplest answer. So this is 2 over 2, which is 1. And this is -8 over 2, which is -4. 2 answers, 1 and -4. Who got it that far? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, good. Next is another problem that is like that. This one's, all the work has been done, but it comes down to this, and the question is, can you simplify it? You stuck in all the numbers and you cranked it out, and this was the answer, but you're about to leave it, and then you're like, oh crap, I think we had to simplify those. Yes, you do. Can you simplify that? I'll pause for a sec. Hint, I'd start here and try to figure out what that breaks down to. Like, is that like 3 root 7? If you don't remember how to do that, I'll help you with it in a minute. So if I have 2 root 10 for that square root of 40, then can I simplify it any further? Ainsley, 2 root 10 now can be simplified because the top can be factored. Can you do that step?
You would factor by 2.
Like right here, 2 comes out of all of that. So 2 comes out, and what do you get?
You would get 3 plus or minus square root of 10 all over 2, and then the 2 2's would cancel.
Perfect, and there's your answer. Raise your hand if you had that one. All right, that's not enough people. We got to do this again. Do you have any questions about how that worked? Yes?
So for my answer, did 3 plus or minus 1 root 10, is that fine?
Root 20, did you say?
No, like 1 and then square root 10, 2 and a half.
Oh, you're just saying that you put a 1 in there.
Yeah.
Yes, but don't do that because you don't need it. It's like saying 1x. You just say it x. Okay, if there's a 1 in front of something, you just leave it off. All right, here's another one like that. 8 plus and minus the square root of 28 all over 2. This part, I can be your calculator for you because you'd have one. I think most of you know this. How about a kid tells me, what is 28? What times what?
47.
4 times 7. Very good. All right, simplify that one all the way down. Okay, so you're at 8 plus and minus square root of 4, square root of 7 over 2. And then you go, oh, wait, that square root of 4 is really 2. And then you realize that you can factor the top. And you realize that 2 comes out. And then you go, okay, that's the hard part. How many of you would bet me $1 that you know what goes in those parentheses? Raise your hand if you're confident. Okay. So for those of you that don't have your hand up, here's what you do. You know these are both even, so you should know 2 goes in them. So what you do is you divide by 2. And 8 divided by 2 gives you 4 here. There's always a plus minus every time. And then when you divide this by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So some kids will choose to say 1 root 7. Others will just say root 7. And there's a 2 on the bottom. And the whole point was now these will cancel. And there's your answer. Raise your hand if you had that one right. All right. If you didn't have that one right, do you have any questions about what we did? All right, so this really comes down to factoring. And I'm not going to go forever until we get every single kid getting it right because it might just be over some people's heads. Like it might be just a bridge too far and then make the rest of you go crazy trying it 16 times before they finally figure it out. So you can always come up and ask me questions about this stuff. Now here's the last one that I'm kind of worried about. First of all, when there's a negative under the root, I hope you know there's an I in the answer. But what if the numbers are really big? Imagine for a moment that you could use a calculator to figure out some numbers that go in this. I'd be thinking about, well, I know it probably is divisible by 2, but that doesn't really help. Because if I had 402, I don't know if that even helps. It actually does. But anyway, then there's the issue of the negative underneath there. So let's see if you can do it without me. Use a calculator if you want. Final answer will end up being like 6i root 7 or something like that. That's not it, but simplify this as much as you can and you can use a calc. So if you can get over the fact that it's a big number, when you have a big number, hint, 100 usually goes into it. Like if it's really big. So then if this is 8 and this is 100, that is nice. Why? Because what's the square root of 100? 10. Now, can you leave it this way, though? 10, and then the negative in there tells me that there's a square root of negative 1, so therefore I and then root 8. No, if you left it this way, I have to mark it wrong because the square root of 8 can simplify more. The square root of 8, you should have gone, oh yeah, that's root 4 and root 2, which is 2 root 2. That would be your final answer. 10i times 2, which makes 20i root 2. How did I get that at the end? The 2 times the 10 makes the 20. There's an I because it was a negative square root, and the only thing left was the square root of 2. Be honest, how many of you had that before I said it? All right, only 2 of you figured it out. So let's try it again, except with a slightly easier number. Okay? What is the square root of negative 500? Okay, did you say square root of 100 and the square root of 5? But what else is really easy to forget? Yes, the I, or you could say square root of negative 1. That makes you have the negative again, but that's I. And that's 10. 10i root 5. Who had it this time? Nice, we went from 1 or 2 people to 6 people this time. We need to do one more try. For those of you that are good at this, just one more time, I promise. Negative 200. Eddie, what's something that goes into 200? Or maybe it's just perfect in the first place.
Square root of 100 and square root of 2.
That works. Square root of 100, square root of 2. If I just do those two, though, I would have 10 root 2, and that's not the right final answer. You know what you forgot? There's a negative in there. Square root of negative 1, which is I. So then you have 10i root 2. Who had 10i root 2? Okay, good. Maybe you just forgot to say it. Okay. I feel like most of you have got to that point. So what's the discriminant versus like the whole quadratic formula? Well, when you want both solutions, then you need this whole thing. If you just want the discriminant, you only need to do this part. They're way easier. I want to end on one where you got to use the whole quadratic formula and solve this problem. X squared minus 9x minus plus 8, sorry. And I would like you to use the quadratic formula to solve it. It's got 16 parts. Will you be careful? If you can be really careful, you can get this. X equals negative b. So you're saying positive 9 plus or minus square root. Keep going and get the final answer. I'm going to pause while you give that a shot. So we simplified this one down. I'm just re-recording the end here because I forgot to hit start. And we ended up with 9 plus or minus 81 minus 32 all over 2. And then that turns into 9 plus or minus 49 over 2. And I was basically saying that 49 is the discriminant, so we know there's 2 answers. And then we have to do both of them, 9 plus 7 over 2 and 9 minus 7 over 2. Here's the one where you'd add them. 9 plus 7 is 16 over 2, which is 8. And this one's 9 minus the 7 over 2, which is 2 over 2, which is 1. 2 answers, 1 and 8. All right, the test is tomorrow. Study from the practice tests, and that's all I got for you for today.